Welcome back, friends. I'm Annabelle, and I'm here to read. If you would like to follow along, you can either enable captions, or I've included a link to a free ebook down in the video description box, along with any additional source information and any content warnings, because we're just all here to have a good time. Tonight we're going to read Ring Out, Wild Bells by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Ring out, wild bells, to the wild sky, the flying cloud, the frosty light. The year is dying in the night. Ring out, wild bells, and let him die. Ring out the old, ring in the new. Ring happy bells across the snow. The year is going. Let him go. Ring out the false, ring in the true. Ring out the grief that saps the mind. For those that hear we see no more. Ring out the feud of rich and poor. Ring in redress to all mankind. Ring out a slowly dying cause, and ancient forms of party strife. Ring in the nobler modes of life, with sweeter manners, purer laws. Ring out the want, the care, the sin, the faithless coldness of the times. Ring out, my mournful rhymes, but ring the fuller minstrel in. Ring out false pride in place and blood, the civic slander and the spite. Ring in the love of truth and right. Ring in the common love of good. Ring out old shapes of foul disease. Ring out the narrowing lust of gold. Ring out the 1,000 years of old. Ring in the 1,000 years of peace. Ring in the valiant man and free, the larger heart, the kindlier hand. Ring out the darkness of the land. Ring in the Christ that is to be. The end. Should I put a content warning for hope in the new year? Ring Out Wild Bells is just one very, 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 very small part of a much longer poem published by Alfred Lord Tennyson in 1850 called In Memoriam A.h.h. For a little bit of an explanation as to why we didn't read all of In Memoriam A.h.h., this is Canto 106. It's kind of long is what I'm getting at here. The longer poem kind of contains a lot of lines that we just think of when we think of, like, poetry. Which I know, the main one is, "'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all." And from all of that, including the title, especially In Memoriam, you might be able to piece together that this poem is kind of an expression of grief after having lost a friend of Alfred Lord Tennyson. Arthur Henry Hallam, a.h.h., was one of Tennyson's best friends, and it wasn't just one of Tennyson's best friends, he was also his sister's fiancé. So he meant a lot to the entirety of the Tennyson family. I don't feel like that's a stretch to say. But apparently he just dropped dead one day of a brain aneurysm, which if you're unfamiliar with that method of death, you'll just die. Like, it's incredibly scary, so we're not going to talk about it at length, but you will generally be just kind of fine and then not be fine ever again. So this death very clearly rocked the entire family, so that's part of why Tennyson wrote it. And around 10 years after this poem was published, Prince Albert passed away, and apparently Queen Victoria found a lot of solace in this whole poem. She called it one of her favorites of all time, and she expressed a lot of thanks, apparently, to Tennyson over this poem. This particular canto, Ring Out Wild Bells, is a really, really good one to read in this weird week between Christmas and New Year's. I haven't put all my stuff away yet, please don't judge me. If you don't live in Victorian England, I think this is still like a little bit of a tradition in England, but I'm an American, so what do I know? But the Ringing Out Wild Bells refers to this British tradition, and among the source links down in the video description box for this one, I'm going to include an actual video of these bells playing so that because I feel like my describing it, I'm gonna try my best, but it's just a lot easier to see it. So in these old churches, they don't just have like one bell that they pull and ringy-dingy, they have several. So they have a whole lot of different pulls and a whole lot of different bells, and they can play different tones. Like that's how you get the... Before the New Year festivities begin, they will put these big muffles on the hanging down part, the clapper, that's the word. They'll put these big muffles on the clapper so that when the clapper hits the bell, it doesn't produce that like very sharp ring sound. It is just kind of this very dull tone that kind of reverberates. And up until the clock strikes midnight, they will ring these reverberating, almost ominous bells to say goodbye to the old year. And then they have one bell which chimes the hour, It's midnight, so it'll chime 12 times. And that one is unmuffled, so you get that really sharp ding tone. And then after it rings 12 times to mark the hour, then they ring out with these unmuffled bells, and it's this very bright musical sound after the kind of ominous ringing out of the old year. The whole poem is packed with just very typical, like, I'm gonna, work out more this year. I didn't work out at all last year. Forget what happened last year. I'm gonna work out this year, and I'm gonna get organized, and I'm gonna put away my Christmas decorations before January 1st this time. The poem is really all about just leaving behind your regrets, leaving behind the iniquities of the past, and going forward with a bright, bell-like tone. Bell. And just kind of going forward in this almost attitude of hope. It's also very telling that every stanza except for the last one begins with ring out, and then the last one is ring in. Throughout the body of the poem, he goes back and forth between ringing out and ringing in, and then he ends the poem with just ringing in, just as hopes for the future. It's just kind of a really great poem for the end of the year, even though I feel like most of us are going to be very, very cautious about expressing any form of optimism at the coming year. Let's make it mediocre, 2022. If you have any thoughts about this poem, I would love to hear about them down below in the comments section. I'm always there, looking for a fight. Or a good discussion. And while you're down there, you might as well subscribe, because we'll be back next week with another work of classic literature. I'll see y'all next time.